Good morning, Year 10. Welcome to our final lesson of this half term. It's gone really quickly in lots of ways, and it's been really nice to have some of you on board with these lessons and seeing you each week. Okay, so I'm going to set you a challenge today that I'd like to be completed for the 22nd of February. I'll put all the details at the end, so don't worry. And today's lesson is all about adding melodies to our chord progressions that we started last week. So before we do anything, just pause the video now and can you answer the 6 starter questions in your books, please? Okay, so we're at the point now where we're adding melodies to our chord progressions. Thank you so much, Angela, Eleanor and Cameron, for turning in the work you did last week. Really interesting work, and I felt like you all really grasped how to create a chord progression in B minor. So it was brilliant, and they were all completely different as well. So it was really nice to see your individual creativity coming through. So this week, this is what you're going to be doing. So you're going to be adding a melody to the chords that we already have. Okay. Secondly, you've got to use some of the melodic devices that we've studied in the last few weeks, so things like sequence, for example, or descending scalic pattern. Okay, so just for a quick task, pause the video now. I want you to look at the melodic devices in your book and remember as many as you can in 1 minute. Then close your book and write out as many as you can recall. And remember, we're just looking at melodic devices, so not harmonic or rhythmic. So pause the video now and just do the quick task. Okay, so our main task today. So like I say, you started off with some beautiful chord progressions last week. Some of them were block chords, which were really nice. Cameron did some really nice broken chords, which was lovely. And today we're going to add a melody using some of our melodic devices that sort of fit nicely above our chord progressions. So remember, we're in the key of B minor, so just be aware of your key signature. So essentially, you might not have finished your whole chord progression for your piece because sometimes we have to do the melody and the chord progression at the same time. It all depends how you feel comfortable working, really. But sometimes we need to add a bit of melody to our chords just so we know the direction our piece is going in. So I've just got some tips for you. Okay, so just pause the video and have a look through these, but I'll talk you through these actually before you do that. So first of all, this doesn't need to be a huge symphony, okay? Your piece of music only really needs to be a maximum of 32 bars long, okay? So that's not a huge amount. And remember, you can kind of repeat sections. Part of the beauty of melodies is that they often repeat themselves, and chord progressions repeat themselves, and these are the themes that run through your piece. So you don't have to be changing it all the time. On the contrary, in fact, what we're looking at is developing what you've already got. So your piece needs to be a maximum of 32 bars long, and that is it, okay? If it's a bit shorter or a bit longer, that's fine. The reason I've chosen 32 bars is because it's a multiple of 4, and phrasing wise it's very common and sounds musically correct when we're just learning to compose, to sort of have blocks of 4 bars at a time, because it just sort of feels like it's got that musical gravity and makes sense. So second point, think about the form you want the structure of your piece to be in. Your piece, not you piece. So do you want it to be in binary form, ternary form, or rondo form? So if you look back on what you did with Mr. Radford a couple of weeks ago, what is binary form, what is ternary form, and what is rondo form? So for example, if you wanted to do your piece in ternary form, you would have your A section as your start, your chord progression and your nice melody to start with. Then you'd have a B section, which is different, but then you'd have your A section returning, which is what I mean about it doesn't have to change all the time. If you structure your piece cleverly, you can have the same at the end as you had at the beginning. So think about the form you want the structure of your whole piece to be in. Third point, start and end your melody on the tonic note, okay? The tonic note of the scale is the starting note of whatever key you're in. So if we're in D major, for example, the tonic would be D. So in this case, we're in B minor, so your starting note should be B, and your finishing note should be B because it bookends your piece nicely. Fourth point, keep your melody simple at first. Don't try and overthink it. Just come up with a really nice, short, memorable motif, which is my next point. And remember, you can use musical devices to develop it further in your B section or your C section or whatever, however you choose to structure your piece. But keep it really simple at first. The most successful pieces are the ones with really memorable, simple tunes. Have a memorable motif, that's sort of part of what I've just said. Use your chord progression as a guide, so this is important. So if your melody is above a chord 3, for example, so if you've got a chord 3 in your chord progression, use the notes from the chord 3 in your melody. So for example, here we have a chord 3. So if you've got a chord 3 in your chord progression, it might be nice to have a D, an F sharp, or an A sharp in your melody somewhere, or all three, or just one of them, so it fits nicely with your chord 3. It might sound a bit clashy if you've got a chord 3 in your chord progression and you're putting the notes over chord 4. It might sound great, it might sound brilliant. Remember, it's whether it sounds great to you that matters anyway. Okay, next point. Remember that your piece each has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp, but they will live in the key signature, so you don't need to add those throughout your piece because they're implied in the key signature. But because we're in a minor key, your A sharps, which is the 7th note, need to be added as accidentals. I should probably have checked my spelling before I did this. What am I doing? Accidentals, there we go. Sorry. Okay. The next thing I would say is keep your melodic devices list nearby so that you can add some really intentional and clever melodic writing to your melodies. So, don't just sort of make it up willy-nilly. Use the guide and use specific musical devices that composers have been using for years. And you can use rhythmic devices as well, okay? So, for example, you might want to put a triplet in there. You might want to put some nice articulation, so some staccato notes and some slurs. You might want your melody to be disjunct at parts, or you might want it to be arpeggiated. You might want it to be scalic or conjunct. So just keep that nearby and use as many as you can in your pieces. And the final point, use regular phrasing at the end of each phrase, and at the end of each phrase, use one of your cadences that we've studied. So remember, cadences, you've got your perfect, imperfect, plagal and interrupted, and remember which ones are the final kind of sounding ones. They usually end on a chord 1 at the end of a phrase, and which sound like they need to continue. So they're the ones where it's sort of left hanging in the air a little bit. So there's just some tips to think about when you're composing these pieces. And like I said, it doesn't need to be finished today, okay? I'd like them to be uploaded by the end of half term, so that's sort of the Monday of the first week back, which is the 22nd of Feb, onto assignments, so I can have a listen to them before our lesson. And you might want to send me, can you send me a picture of it written down and possibly a recording of it as well? I mean, if you just send me the notation, I can sort of play it on the piano, but it'd be great to hear you playing it as well. If you want to, I know you've been looking at BandLab with Mr. Radford and Mr. Heather. If you want to record it into BandLab, so you've got your chord underneath and then your melody above on a separate track, that would be fantastic. Or if you want to play it live, also fantastic, whichever you find more comfortable. So I will check in with you again at the end of the lesson and make sure we're all sort of on the right track. Please email me if you are having some issues. I'll check my emails a couple of times, not loads, but a couple of times over the half term. So if you have got a question or something that you think, I just don't know what I'm doing here, miss, then just put it in an email and I'll respond to you as quickly and as detailed as I can. Okay, so that's your task for today. Okay, adding melody to your chord progression. And I would say this is the most important slide for today with some handy tips. All right, have a fantastic half term, year 10, get some rest, look after yourselves and stay safe. And I really look forward to seeing you again after the half term and catching up with your work. Okay, take care, bye bye.